The Frog Prince. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess, the most spoiled princess that had ever lived. She had a golden dress, a golden crown, a golden plate, and a golden bed. Her favorite thing of all was her small golden ball. She played with it in the garden for hours, bouncing it off the ground. But one day it bounced too far away, out of the garden, into the woods, down the old well. "Oh no!" the princess cried, as she ran to it and saw how deep it was. What was she to do now? "I can go down the well and get it for you," she heard a strange, squeaky voice. She looked around the woods, but no one was there, except for one small, green, ugly frog sitting on top of the well. "But what will I get in return?" it smiled. "Anything!" yelled the princess, offering her dresses, her jewels, and her pearls. But the frog didn't wear dresses, nor jewels, nor pearls, so it asked for something else instead. "I want to live with you and be your friend, eat in your golden plate and sleep in your golden bed." And the princess agreed, for she really wanted her ball back. So the frog spread out its legs and hopped into the deep well, splashing the water all around, and came up quickly back again with the golden ball in its tiny hands. The princess was overjoyed. She jumped on her feet, grabbed the ball, and ran away, forgetting all about the promise she had made. Dinner came at the princess's home, and she joined her father and sisters on the table. But just as they were about to start, they heard 3 knocks at the door. "I'm here, dear princess," she heard a familiar squeaky voice. "I'm here to live with you and be your friend, just like you promised." The king heard that and scolded his daughter, for he believed a promise had to be kept. So she opened the door, and just as she did, the small green frog hopped inside the castle. It was seated right next to her, and it ate out of her golden plate, just as promised. But as night fell, and it asked to be brought up to her bed, the princess could not take it anymore. "A dirty, disgusting frog in a princess's bed!" she screamed in anger. She picked up the frog and threw it to the wall. In the blink of an eye, the frog disappeared. The princess rubbed her eyes as she saw the handsome, beautiful prince sitting in its place. "I was enchanted by an evil witch," he explained, rubbing his head where it had hit the wall. "A long time ago. But you have somehow broken the spell." They fell in love that summer and got married that fall, and moved to the prince's beautiful castle. The princess still had her golden ball, but now their children were playing with it in the garden. And they lived happily ever after, forever thankful to the king.
Snow White. There once was a girl more beautiful than fresh fallen snow. Her name was Snow White. Her father was the king, and her mother the queen. But her mother died when Snow was young. And her father married a new queen, a very beautiful and jealous queen. Each morning, she asked her magic mirror who was the most beautiful. Each morning, the magic mirror said, "The queen." But one morning, the mirror said Snow White was the most beautiful. Angry with jealousy, the queen had her huntsman take Snow White to the forest to kill her. But the huntsman could not kill Snow White and left her in the forest. In the forest, there lived 7 dwarfs in a tiny cottage. 7 dwarfs found her crying and brought her back to their home. There, Snow cooked and cleaned for them. But the queen talked to her magic mirror again. She found out she was still not the most beautiful, and Snow was still alive. Disguising herself as an old peddler, the queen went to the dwarves' home. She sold Snow White a poisoned comb. But the dwarves came back in time to save Snow. For a second time, the queen disguised herself as a farmer's wife. She sold Snow her most poisonous thing, a red apple. When Snow bit the apple, she began choking and fell to the ground. The dwarves arrived, but they were too late. Snow was dead. Saddened, they put Snow into a crystal coffin, so all could see her beauty. Time passed, and a prince, riding through, saw Snow White in her coffin. In putting his hand to the glass, the coffin was jarred and fell. It shattered, and the piece of poison apple was coughed from Snow's throat. Suddenly, the girl was alive. She and the prince married. Snow's stepmother found that there was a new queen that was more beautiful than her. She rushed to see who this new rival was, and Snow White recognized her. The evil queen was made to dance all night in a pair of glowing hot iron shoes until she dropped dead. Snow White lived a long and happy life ever after.
Thumbelina. Thumbelina was born in a flower in the garden of a very old woman. And she was small, very, very small, no bigger than a thumb. She slept in a walnut shell cradle and ate at a toadstool table. The old woman loved her bigger than Thumbelina was small. One day, an evil toad carried Thumbelina off to be a bride for his evil toad son. He locked her in a hole by a pond, with toad guards all around. But Thumbelina was not afraid. With the help of a friendly fish named Bartholomew and a beautiful butterfly named Celeste, Thumbelina rode Bartholomew across the pond, then was flown into the sky by Celeste. Unfortunately, a fierce bird dove at Celeste, who lost her grip on Thumbelina, who fell, landing safely on a lily pad which floated down the river. Thumbelina had to make an oar from a floating stick and steer her way to safety, just as a thunderstorm struck, sending lightning all around her. The animals in the forest were afraid of the lightning, but Thumbelina led them all to a cave where they were safe and dry. But the evil toad and his evil toad son found Thumbelina and carried her away again. Only Thumbelina's friend Celeste the butterfly saw this and followed. Thumbelina tried to talk to the horrible toads, but they wouldn't listen. She begged them to free her, but they didn't care. Finally, that night, Thumbelina sneaked off, but immediately became lost in the wilderness alone, but unafraid. By starlight and moonlight, Thumbelina hiked on through the woods. Finally, she came to a cliff, nowhere else to go. It was there the evil toad caught up with her. He had called upon an evil toad army to aid him in recapturing the tiny girl. She had no place to run to, so instead, she jumped. But Celeste had been busy and had called upon the fairies for aid, and the fairy prince flew from the night sky and plucked Thumbelina from midair. In the end, the fairy prince was so smitten with Thumbelina's beauty that he married her, and both being the same tiny size, lived happily ever after.